Well, not yet so easy. Court does call the case of the people versus Jeffrey Sanders.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Rita Hanna, Assistant Prosecuting Attorney on behalf of the people.
And Laura Yagi, Assistant Public Defender on behalf of Mr. Sanders.
All right. And he's,
So, Your Honor,
go ahead.
was the date and time set for preliminary examination. Before we even got to that point, there was some conversation I had with defense counsel regarding proceeding with this case, and also information I received that there is a CPS investigation. That investigation is based on the reports that defendant has been living with, or at least at the very least staying with the victim in violation of his PPO as well as violation of his bond conditions. I informed counsel of that. I know we had a chambers conference regarding that matter. It was the people's position that we were going to ask for remand to keep him in custody until we could have a bond violation hearing and to adjourn the exam to follow. The victim was not present here this morning, although there was some back and forth about whether or not she was on her way. The victim had expressed great fears about showing up here today and what the defendant would do if he knew that she was going to testify. After our chambers conference, Your Honor, I came out to call the victim. There was some conversation about having the victim appear via Zoom. So Deputy Raymond Hall and I called the victim to have a conversation with her about the possibility of her doing that. During that conversation, towards the end of the conversation, she caught our attention as we were hanging up the phone and said the defendant had been texting her throughout this whole day, essentially, throughout this whole procedure, and that she wanted someone to go look for him because he had texted her that he was going to run. I then left the conference room right away. I informed Public Defender Yagi about what we had learned and was looking for the defendant. My understanding at that point from Ms. Yagi was that the defendant was going to go use the restroom. I came out in the hallway. That is what he claimed he was doing. I had Deputy Raymond Hall follow him based on what we had just learned. Next thing I know, I was back in the courtroom. I heard police stop. And when I went out in the hallway, the defendant was no longer there. And it was my understanding that he had taken off.
In my understanding with reports from security that he took off, that would be the southern emergency entrance out of this building headed in a southerly direction. Ms. Yagi, anything?
Your Honor, I don't think there is anything I need to add at this point.
Based upon that, and this is date and time set for preliminary examination, I'm going to issue a bench warrant for the defendant's failure to appear. There will be no bond. That warrant will issue immediately. I have also marked the file that this matter, initially anyway, it might ultimately be set before Judge Washington, but should be set before me when we get him, and we will.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And that was going to be a bad conference. Ready? No. Not letting that go. Court does. Can we get Mr. Burke out?
I think he should be in custody.
No, I want to go on the record. Yes, I know.
They found him, Your Honor. So I don't know.
Pardon?
If the court wanted to, I'm sorry, on Mr. Sanders, they found him. But they have him.
They have him?
They have him. Excellent police work. I don't know if the court
Best in the state.
do anything today.
Oh, yes. If you guys have time, let's bring him to me.
Your Honor, if I may, I'll go and pick him up right now. He's just around the corner.
Fantastic. I'll be here with bells on. All right, court is standing brief recess. Right. I need that file back.
Yeah. I will pull you in.
Well. You may be seated. Court does call case of the people versus Jeffrey Sanders.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Rita Hanna, Assistant Prosecuting Attorney on behalf of the people.
And Laura Yagi, Assistant Public Defender, with and on behalf of Mr. Sanders, who is to my right.
Jeffrey Sanders. All right.
Your Honor, before we start, I also just received a text message sent from the victim to the officer in charge, Deputy Hall. It's a screenshot at this stage. Of course, we need to get more information. It's a screenshot from someone named Jeffrey saying, you okay? If you want me in jail, just say so. She says, I don't want you to. That was read by him at 11:42 a.m. Then he says 9 out of 10 times, I am. Then he says, he back. Then he says, can you talk? Then he says, I'm gonna run. This seems to coincide with what the victim was telling us towards the end of our conversation.
All right. So I don't know where you want to start this, Jackie.
I frankly, I don't either. I think what I would request today is that this be set, reset for exam and set for bond violation hearing, because at this point today, I don't feel prepared to go forward on the bond violation aspect. To be candid with the court, I just need more time to talk to Mr. Sanders about these allegations that I just learned about a few hours ago, and I need to go through them in more depth and more detail with Mr. Sanders.
Okay, but just so that we're clear, as we were going through the conversation this morning regarding certain reports and certain other things and certain allegations by the alleged victim in this case, in a lot of ways is referencing his status right now. Aren't those irrelevant to the court? I mean, because, well, I won't say absolutely irrelevant, but for the purposes of today, certainly they're no longer relevant. I mean, even if, which was the court's attempt to try to determine as to whether or not he might pose some threat to the victim in this case, I don't even know that I need to go through that part of the analysis, because clearly he's demonstrated that he's a flight risk. And so he's not going anywhere today. I hope he enjoyed his little last half hour of freedom. And so, I mean, there's that issue. And also, we were getting indications, and they will get them, that he was texting the victim, and he's got a no contact.
I understand.
I mean, I'll set it for a hearing, but I don't know.
I think one of my questions, well, the first question would be, obviously, is there a bond violation? The next question is what is the appropriate sentence for that bond violation? One of the things that I do think is especially relevant is, I do think it would be relevant for the court's consideration in terms of a sentence for a bond violation, the context of the conversations. And I don't have that at this time. And I think it would be important for me to be able to prepare and for the court to have, because I mean, I don't want to necessarily go further today, but I think it does make a difference if there is contact with someone, versus if someone is calling, texting, and saying, will you respond? And then there's a response. I just think it matters in terms of sentence, even if it doesn't matter in terms of whether or not there's a violation, because one of the things that the state's witness said this morning was that she had been reaching out and asking for a response.
Your Honor, first of all, I'm sorry, may I?
Yes.
First of all, I don't appreciate that my conversation that I had with a victim in this case was overheard, listened to, whatever it may be. The part that's now being put on the record is also a great deal about why that victim did not show up today. And as we witnessed, quite frankly, she probably had good reason not to show today, because I don't know what defendant would have done. And I had to call this victim. I had to have deputies go out and have our victim advocate contact her and essentially tell her, take your kids and run, get out of the house, because that's very likely where he was going. After finding out that she was going to appear on Zoom. I mean, she was willing to appear on Zoom and testify today, despite all her hesitations. And he decides to run, and he's messaging. I cannot imagine a context where that is okay or acceptable or excusable in any way. We're here for a court hearing, and he is messaging her as we're talking to her. So I want to be very clear. I don't think it's appropriate to further put any statements the victim made on the record in front of this defendant, because quite frankly, we're just increasing her risk here. This is high lethality, 100%. And we're not going to contribute to making the risk for her even greater than it is by talking about statements she made in confidence speaking to me. We're just not going to do that. So I would ask Ms. Yagi to stop right there if she's going to get into further anything that has to do with what the statements the victim made.
I understand. I will request that it be set for bond violation hearing. I don't feel prepared today to address it. I think there are statements that are discoverable, and so I'll follow up with the prosecutor about that.
Can efforts be made to have the victim available next week?
We'll do our best, Your Honor.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, adjourn the preliminary examination. I'm going to keep the case. It would go back to Judge Washington on the 28th, but we'll get it heard sooner if I keep it. So I'll set the preliminary examination for October 21st, 2025, 9 a.m. That will be before me. I'll also set a bond hearing. We'll hear it sometime that day. Bond violation hearing. Anything you want to say before I do what I'm going to do regarding bond?
Not from me, Your Honor.
You know, Mr. Sanders, I'm just going to say this before I do it because I think it's important. Your attorney was back there, her and the prosecutor, going back and forth, and I'm sitting there listening. And I tried my best to make sure that every opportunity was at least afforded before any presumption was made regarding any contact, regarding any of that, by having the victim appear via Zoom. And you decide at some point that you are just going to not pay attention to any of these proceedings, do everything your own way. My understanding is you told an officer in the hallway that you weren't going to go anywhere, that you were going to the restroom, knowing darn well that you were just at some point trying to find your way out of this building. I was also informed that at some point, which may lead to additional charges, when they're telling you to stop, you just kept going. And maybe you need to also understand this, that you set off in this building by going out an emergency exit, an incredible amount of protocols in this building to keep everybody here safe when you went out for your little half an hour jaunt where the heck you thought you were going, with the thought that you weren't going to get caught. If the court had made up its mind that I wasn't going to incarcerate you, you changed that. This is all you. Because as I've indicated, I have to be concerned about two things. One, at least before now, I wasn't concerned about you being a risk of flight, but I have to be concerned about that. And I have to be concerned also about the protection of the public, but particularly the victim in this case. My heart of hearts tells me that at some point, that's where you were headed. To terrorize her more. Because you were gone. And because you laughed, had all kinds of court security down this way, trying to figure out what was going on. All kinds of debt. You threw law enforcement into this whole world of trying to find you. At the same time, tried to protect her and those 4 children because there was no telling what she would do. So you might as well get used to one thing. You've shown me what you are at this point. I don't have to try to hear a whole lot from people about what you are, because I think you were going after her. And I'm going to tell you, on my watch, that's not going to happen. Defendant's previous bond is canceled. Defendant's bond is hereby ordered revoked. Defendant is remanded.
Yeah.
Is that it? 14A stands adjourned. I'm good.
What was supposed to be a routine preliminary hearing exploded into chaos when prosecutors revealed that Jeffrey Sanders had been secretly living with and repeatedly contacting the very victim he was ordered to stay away from. Moments before court, the victim told officials she'd been receiving messages from Sanders all morning, including one chilling text, "I'm gonna run." Minutes later, he did exactly that. Sanders lied to officers, claimed he was just going to the restroom, then bolted out an emergency exit, triggering building alarms and sending deputies into full search mode. Court security scrambled, the judge was furious, and the victim and her children were rushed to safety in case he went after them. When deputies caught him and dragged him back into the courtroom, Judge Simpson's reaction was instant and ice cold. He told Sanders he had half an hour of freedom, only because he ran, and that his actions proved everything. He was a flight risk, a danger to the victim, and someone who does everything his own way. The judge said he believed Sanders was on his way to terrorize her more and warned him that on his watch. That will never happen. In the end, Judge Simpson canceled his bond, revoked every release condition, and remanded Sanders directly into custody. No excuses, no bond, no second chances. One of the most intense runaway moments ever caught in a courtroom. If you want more insane real courtroom moments like this, make sure to subscribe. New episodes daily.